Good afternoon, Facebook. How is everyone doing on this sunny day? We're out in the sunshine. That's why I have my sunglasses on. Oh, but actually I can take them off because it's so nice out today. But today we are still celebrating Black History Month and Black history in our own backyards. And today I am just so proud to be in yet another forest preserve, the Forest Preserves of Cook County. Today we're in Schubert's Woods, which is right off the Sauk Trail, and we'll give the exact address where this is. But it's just amazing how much history we have in our own backyards, and I am so honored again to have Professor Larry McClellan here with us today to give us a little bit more history about where we are right now, how important this is to Black History Month, and how important this is into the movement of the Underground Railroad. So Professor, tell us where we are today and what's happening over here. And thank you again for being with us.
Well, it's really terrific to be able to share the stories. And as the commissioner said, we're sitting in Schubert's Woods, which is part of a larger area known as Sauk Trail Woods. And we're at the very southern edge of Cook County, but this is Forest Preserve land. And if you look over that way, you can see about 100 yards. We might see, no, we don't see any cars, but right over there is Sauk Trail. And the Sauk Trail is this incredibly important historic road in the history for all of us. Native American peoples living along the Mississippi used to travel for hundreds of years from the Mississippi River to Detroit to deal with the French, to deal with the British, and then later with the Americans. And to do that, they created the Sauk Trail, coming from near Rock Island all the way across to Illinois and coming right past here and going on from here on to Detroit and then the forts and the people that were established in Detroit. So this was a major thoroughfare for Native American peoples going back and forth. Later on, this became a major trail for settlers and California or bust folks that were traveling by wagon train and by wagon to California. And thousands of families came across here on the Sauk Trail going west. However, for our stories about the Underground Railroad, what's important is the Sauk Trail going east. Because freedom seekers, people who were enslaved in the South, seized their freedom. A number of them came up the Mississippi River Valley, up the Illinois River Valley, and got up kind of southwest of Chicago. And a large number of them went on to Chicago, and there are just great, we haven't even begun to tell the Chicago stories, which are pretty remarkable, with both white and black abolitionists in the city helping freedom seekers. But a number of freedom seekers, as they came up into northern Illinois, decided to go take the Sauk Trail and go due east to Detroit, because Detroit meant you could get to Canada, just across the river and you're free. And so we know that between 200 and 500 freedom seekers traveled right on this road, 100 yards from where we're standing. Now in the 1830s, a remarkable family named John and Sabra McCoy had come from New England, and they settled here, and they established their farm right here on the Sauk Trail. And they became deeply involved, not only in relations with the Native American people, but also they really opened their homes to freedom seekers. And their farm was about 300 yards due west of where we're standing. We are actually on McCoy Farm itself. And our records suggest that somewhere between 100 and 200 freedom seekers actually stopped at the McCoy homestead. And then the McCoy family sold this land to the Forest Preserve in 1918. So we are on really important ground in terms of Underground Railroad stories. And just to focus again, if you look at the map, you can see we're sitting here. Here's the Sauk Trail, and we're sitting in a parking area that is just about 50 yards north of the Sauk Trail. And this is the Great Sauk Trail that goes from the Mississippi River and goes all the way east to Detroit. And the McCoy homestead was right on the trail. We have a cycle of stories about freedom seekers who came through and stayed at the McCoy homestead, and they stayed overnight. And there were not secret rooms or anything. They stayed in the living room. They slept in the bedrooms. They were welcomed into their home, which is really remarkable. And in the McCoy family archives, there's this remarkable story about one of their children remembers as a child having freedom seekers in her house. And she told her grandchildren that she remembered looking at this little child who was running for her life with her family, and she was so carefully sitting next to the fire reading a book. But the McCoy child knew that this little girl could not read because she was holding the book upside down. But can you imagine somebody remembering as a child that their home was open to people that were reaching for their freedom? As I indicated, 200 to 500 freedom seekers came right along this road on their way. And I want to tell you one remarkable story about a young woman named Caroline Quarles. And that's that story that I've been researching for years. And Caroline was 16 years old. She was enslaved in a home in St. Louis, Missouri. Her father was her master's son, and her master's son had his way with one of the women, one of the slave women, and Caroline was born. Caroline was a beautiful young child, very light-skinned, beautiful long black hair, freckles, blue eyes, but she was a slave. And she grew up in a household with her cousins, who of course were free. And finally at age 16, she had had enough. And so she decided that she was going to seize her own freedom. And so because she was light-skinned, she was able to talk her way onto a riverboat, took the riverboat up the Mississippi River, got off in Galena. There was one black guy living in Galena, and he saw her and said, "You're passing, you're in deep trouble," because there were already slave catchers after her. So he put her on a stage to Milwaukee. Caroline Quarles ended up being the first freedom seeker to show up in Wisconsin, and they weren't sure what to do. And this was in 1843. And so they finally decided one of them would be her escort, a guy named Lyman Goodnow. And so Lyman Goodnow and Caroline, they borrowed a buggy, and they traveled by buggy down from Milwaukee. They went around Chicago, and they came down through Elgin and Naperville, and then to Lockport, and then Homer Township, and then they picked up the Sauk Trail, and Caroline came in her buggy right on this road, on her way to a farm very near the Indiana border, and she went on to then on to Canada and her freedom. But if you can imagine, 16 years old, and as we had talked about before, that notion of not really being sure where you're going,
Right.
but having the courage and the insight and the kind of basic grit to just say, I am going to be a free human being. And she just took off. And so what we have right here in Sauk Trail Woods and Schubert's Woods and here on the Sauk Trail, we have got really important places where hundreds of people that were seizing their freedom came through, most of them walking. And they were walking through the woods like this. And just kind of what an amazing saga, what an amazing journeys that those people had.
Absolutely. Well, Professor, I could listen to you for hours. These are such wonderful stories, and to think that they're right here in our own backyard. So thank you for that. We're in the Forest Preserve today, and if you've been following us for the last couple of segments, we are going to bring all of those to life this Saturday and do another Facebook Live presentation where Professor McKellen, as well as Tom Shepard, will come and show other documents, tell a few other stories, and link all of those stories together to show how we have such a connection right here through the Forest Preserves, through South suburban Cook County, and you said Chicago, which we're not talking about Chicago right now, but we have plenty more information to talk about. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for digging in and learning more about Black history in our own backyards. And please feel free to share this vital information. And we look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Thanks.